Good evening. I'm Socrates, Garrett, and we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, the heart of the Deep South, right here in the African-American-owned broadcasting studio. We believe digital.com, our own platform. And so it's critically important that in the African-American community, we control the narrative. I look forward to receiving opportunities to show and advertise your products for goods and services and to move your brand along in this community. We're broadcasting live on Facebook. When We Believe Digital Podcast, go to Roku and download our app, and We Believe Global, with shows like this to bring articulate, intelligent conversations and dialogue to our platform. So I'm here to continue sounding the alarm. This is how the South is going to rise again. Good evening and welcome to Doc and Sock. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi, a city that's in the news most of the time. But here lately, we've seen other cities take the front page of the papers and get most of the attention on the evening news. And it's all about immigrants and immigration. We're going to talk a little bit about that this evening and what impact it has on black folk. We're also going to talk about the war that's going on between Israel and the Palestinians. There are a lot of different opinions about this war, and some of the comments that we're getting on our YouTube page are a little bit horrific. Some of us show that we are careless people and that we really don't have a heart for others. And so we're going to talk about that war and how it's going to end. And my co-host, Dr. Henderson, says that we're seeing the beginning of World War III, Part 1, and he talks about Part 2. We're also going to talk about the young lady up at Harvard University that was recently forced into resignation because, in my opinion, she spoke out against the war. And whenever you speak out against the war, you're normally going to get replaced or you're going to be assassinated, as was in the case of Martin Luther King. Many people think that he was assassinated because of his involvement with civil rights, but that was not the case. It was because of his involvement, and he started to speak out against the Vietnam War. And when you start to speak out on subjects like that, you're fooling with the economics of somebody. You're breaking somebody's plate, and that doesn't go over very well. So right here in Jackson on We Believe Digital, we got a lot to talk about. Now, if you're watching us on Facebook, share this program with your friends and family. Send us fans, send us stars, join our fan club, become a subscriber. They are right there on Facebook. If you're watching us on YouTube, go on and subscribe to our program. You know, our subscription services are growing every day, and we need you to be a part of this family because we're going to tell you the things that you won't hear anywhere else. Now, if you're watching us on Instagram, then we want you to enjoy the many reels, and the viewers that we're getting there is just astronomical. We're getting millions of views these days, and so we appreciate your support and your involvement. Now, if you're watching us on our website and our very own platform, WeBelieveDigital.com, which, by the way, is currently under reconstruction. We're improving that site so that it's more user-friendly and you can enjoy all of the many things there. But that's our platform. That's our network. And so we're going to continue to grow that at WeBelieveDigital.com. So, Doc, let me get straight into the program. It's good to see you on Tuesday afternoon. You survived the holidays and the 4th of July, the 1st of January, the holiday didn't seem to get you to succumb to it.
Of course not. I don't let nothing stop me but death. Now, that's sort of strong, but I've always had a policy. If you're not dead, you're supposed to be moving.
If you're not dead, you ought to be moving.
That's right. Moving and working.
And you got to be graveyard dead to do that.
Graveyard dead, Doc.
Doc, I've introduced a lot of subjects in my opening remarks, so I want to get right into it. This deal with the immigrants seems to be causing a lot of people a lot of concern. And some say that the plan is to run blacks out of urban cities by bringing immigrants in. What say you?
I say, yay. That's what's going to happen. That's always happened. Every time you have a lot of immigrants coming into America, they are usually given housing close to where the blacks are, because most of them don't have the economic means, they don't have the culture nor the language to assimilate into what we call the major American subdivision and societies. They usually have to be groomed to become good Americans. And those Hispanics and other Asians that are coming through Mexico, a lot of people got to understand, all those folks are not Hispanics. They're all groups coming in by the thousands every day. And they will be replacing blacks because they're going to be in the black areas initially. And the bad news is that they will be getting services that the blacks are not going to get and not getting today. Going to have subsidized housing, food, clothing, shelter, and training. There's very little training going on in the black ghettos that's paid for by the government. And you watch those immigrants, they're going to be learning English, job training, and those that are what I call not too colored or black going to assimilate into the American society in less than a generation. Most of the immigrants are going to have the education and training they need, and they will be able to integrate into mainstream America, just like the people did during slavery when those indentured servants came over here, served 5, 7, 8, or 9 years, and they were given a meal, some tools, a few dollars, some clothing, and told them your contract is ended. Now you can become a white American, and you can be owning your own property, and so on.
Now, Doc,
That's the way it's going to be.
Doc, that doesn't bode well for African Americans. If we're being run out of the places where we're most concentrated, like Chicago, and like Detroit, like Atlanta, like Jackson, Mississippi, if the displacement takes place, if you got a displacement occurring from both sides, you got gentrification going on where whites are moving back into the city and displacing blacks because they cannot afford the increase in the property values, and so they're going to have to move on and get on out of the way.
Well, let me tell you what the bad news is going to be. And I've been talking about this for years. What did I tell you? And been telling you all is going to happen to black folks when they get to the point where they are gentrified out of those areas. See, those thousands and thousands of immigrants are going to hasten this activity, and those blacks got to go somewhere. They're not going to have the means, just as the immigrants don't have it, to relocate themselves. And since we've been begging black people that used to live here in Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia to come back south, we're going to get our wish. Some of those same mayors that accepting Hispanics and other immigrants from the southern border, in the next 8 to 15 years, they're going to be getting busloads of blacks that are being replaced and sending them back to Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama. We've been asking blacks to come back, but we want to get the wrong group. We want to get those that are retired, that have pensions, that have education and training, not those that are going to be dependent. So the black towns and cities going to have some serious problems in 10 to 15 years with thousands of new blacks that's going to need support.
Look, Doc, that doesn't sound good. That doesn't bode well for the status of African Americans. You already say that we're last in the pecking order in terms of influence and the ability to make decisions. And some say that President Biden is allowing this immigration stuff to be concentrated in urban cities because he needs additional votes.
Of course he does.
And I guess the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott over there, has decided that he is going to move everybody that he can out of Texas.
Well, I don't blame him. He's doing what's best for Texans and the economy of Texas. Now, those same people that he is sending to Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, and other places, in just a few years, in less than a generation, they're going to have the education and training. They're going to be speaking English quite well. and they are going to be relocated back to Texas and Florida and places like that because, and I know you're not going to believe this, in the next 10 to 15 years, you're going to hear the Democrats start talking about amnesty for those white folks that can resemble them, the white Hispanics and others, to become naturalized citizens. They're going to give them amnesty, and all they got to do is go and get the voter's card and get on the Social Security list, and they're going to be full Americans.
So are these immigrants likely to be voting Democrat?
But those that are coming in right now, most of them will be.
They'll be voting Democrat. So
Initially, the first year or two, I would say usually the first 8 years. But after about 8 years, they're going to have the economic independence and the education and training, and they're going to be like the other folks. They're going to be moving into the suburbs, and they will become real Americans, and they're going to be looking at what I call the traditional conservative values, where you have few taxes, you have the ability to own your own business, and you have to become a real American by demonstrating and discriminating against black folks. That's the way they are trained by their peers once they get Americanized.
You slow down. You become a real American by doing what?
Where you learn to assimilate and take on what we call European cultural aspirations, languages, and education and training. Those people are going to supersede the blacks that they are replacing in New York City, in Chicago, and places like that.
Well, let's talk about Mississippi for a moment. We only have 3 million people in the entire state. It seems as if that Mississippi, the entire state, could be a safe haven.
Well, it could be, but that won't happen under the current administration. But what they will do, if they send those folks to Mississippi, they're going to send them to the Mississippi towns and cities where they have black leadership. They're going to concentrate them there. And that's when the bad news is going to happen, where I've been telling you all for years, you're going to have this thing that's going to be called relocation camps. All the poor blacks and the few immigrants that can't pass for white, or what we call high-colored, going to be lumped together in these concentration camps, which you will call relocation camps or ghettos, but it's going to be one way in and one way out, and you will have passes to show the police when you come in and when you go out. This is going to happen.
It's kind of like what we have now. Doc, we have an explosion of crime in this country, and some think that it's an issue of national security to allow all of these immigrants to come into this country. And we're talking about folk that in many cases may be a part of the Mexican cartel, may be some of the most dangerous people in the world. And so I can see why certain citizens, especially black folks in the middle class, are very, very concerned about the number of migrants that are moving into their communities.
Well, they are concerned because they know those people are not being vetted properly. They're just coming in, no health checks, no background checks. If they can get across the border, many don't live in the little towns around the border 24 hours. They put them on a bus and send them on elsewhere. No checks, no anything. Many of them are terrorists. And once they get acclimated to the American way, they're going to start what I call that insurgency, where they're going to be selling more drugs, fighting and killing Americans, becoming serious criminal gangs, associating with the current gangs they have. Police know all these people currently. They know who the evildoers are that's pushing drugs, prostitution, sex trafficking in America. They know those groups right now, always have.
So, but that's a huge part of their economy. You know, we talk about the prison industry in Mississippi and these private prisons throughout this country. Those are economic engines for some.
I guarantee you. It's for the states. That's who are making the money, the states. When they pay someone 8 cents an hour to build certain things, furniture and other pieces of equipment for their friends that have license to do business in the state. That's amazing. That's a lot of money when you can pay someone 8 or 10 or 13 cents an hour to build furniture, to make tacks, to do all kinds of things, to make barrels and other equipment that people use on a daily basis. Man, that's an economic boom for these people that have these these companies. And these very company executives going to give a reward to the politicians that allowed him to do this.
Wow. Let's talk about President Biden for a minute. This is happening under his watch, and his numbers are not good. Last time I saw the polls, he was in the 35 percentile, which is extremely low. And will the immigrants save his presidency, or will it cost him his presidency?
I think it should be half and half. Now, it's a little too soon for 2024 for the Democrats to give all these immigrants amnesty. But they can do that if they choose to do so, just like they did after the Vietnam War, where thousands of young people that moved to other countries were given an opportunity to come back to the United States without any penalty. Within a 30-day period, they were leaving Canada by the thousands and other places coming back to the United States. They're going to do that for certain classes of immigrants. I don't think he'll be able to get away with it in 2024, but guarantee you the next 4 to 8 years, they're going to be amnesty for a lot of immigrants. They need them to replace black folks because they say blacks are not important. They can't run anything. They are poor leaders because we're going to guarantee they'll be poor leaders because we're not going to give them the personnel, the economic wherewithal, and the ability to be leaders because we are going to make sure they are voted against, and we're going to make sure we get some of the most ineffective leaders that we're going to create to put in government in our cities and states. Now that is a historical fact. And those that are turning out to be good leaders, they are going to do like they did during the Civil Rights era. They are going to give those guys state jobs and federal jobs. Give them vice presidents and presidents of foundations. Make a few ambassadors. Give some great jobs as board members and so forth.
So the deal is then, there could be a strategic advantage to the president for allowing this immigration issue to continue to blossom the way that it is. It could be that America is seeing that one man, one vote is not going to work well for Europeans. And so there's got to be a new strategy, and that strategy is, in fact, that we're going to have to bring new members into the European ranks, and so that we'll have enough votes to control the country. Can you imagine Europeans being in a position where they are no longer able to elect the President of the United States of America?
That won't ever happen. They have it fixed now. And you must remember, now, the popular vote is not important on a national election. I've been telling you all for years, 538 people select the President of the United States. 538. We call it the Electoral College. The popular vote can be 45 million for one presidential candidate in the Republican Party and 13 million for the Democrat. And the Electoral College can vote the Democrat in power as president if they choose to do so. And if you select the right people and channel funds in their direction to the amount where they can be determined exactly who they're going to vote for, I'm talking about those Electoral College candidates. See, they are usually friends of the governor, the members in the national legislature. That's who the electoral voters are. They're friends, the big captains of industry, important vice presidents, senior vice presidents of companies.
Well, it's good to have good friends in high places. That's a benefit. Now, folks say today, I like friends with benefits.
Of course.
Now, Doc, would Trump be able to beat Biden if the election was held today?
He would be able to beat Biden, anyone else in the Republican Party, and I see no other person in the Democrat Party that could challenge Biden right at this time and win, if they would do it today.
So you were predicting that the Republicans will claim the White House in 2025?
Unless they can do what they want to do. I mean, the Democrats, if they can manipulate Trump to the point where they can get a felony against him, he will not be able to run for president. And then one of those new young Republicans that just waiting for this to happen going to come in and take over, because almost anyone can beat Joe Biden in the Republican Party.
Do you think the president is that weak that anyone could beat Joe Biden?
In the Republican Party, I'm looking at the candidates that are running for president now in the Republican Party.
So
there are 3 or 4 of them that could give him such a hard time, he'd probably say, I'm just going to have to not run. I don't feel like it. Because he would have to be traveling 24 hours a day, 3 or 4 cities a day, 5 and 6 speeches a week. He won't be able to make it.
Well, last time I think it was in Carolina where the tide got turned. Biden was losing pretty bad till he got over there with Clytus and Benny Thompson and those guys, and they turned it around there, and then he went on to win. Do you think black people will be in a position, or are they grateful enough for his leadership in the last 4 years? Will they turn out in large numbers to support him?
Well, they will, because you can't even pray that blacks, especially the majority, would vote against a Democrat. Blacks love Democrats because they've been brainwashed to love Democrats and hate the Republicans. But that's the majority. Most people don't know that from 13 to 17% of blacks are Republican. They vote Republican. They love Republicans.
I had no idea it would be that high.
That's right. And that's where it's supposed to be. You don't supposed to know it. I know a lot of black Republicans. Now I'm talking about the middle class and so-called upper middle class blacks.
Well, I don't see where it's making any difference in the political landscape here in Mississippi.
It's not.
I mean, blacks, whether you're a Republican or Democrat, first of all, you still black. And the old adage says that, in the pecking order, you're last.
Well, I'm saying they are Republicans, but they are not Republicans in position of responsibility. Now, there are no black serious Republicans in Mississippi. Those few that are Republicans run as independents, and most of them that are Democrats just go on and run Democrat anyway, even though they lean towards Republicans.
Doc, we're up against a hard break for a commercial. You're watching Sock and Doc. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi. We're going to go to a commercial break. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Have you had your Earth Blend coffee today? At Earth Blend Coffee, we take pride in offering you the very best of beans across the world, blended and roasted to perfection, giving you superior quality and satisfying and flavorful taste. Experience the world in one cup with Earth Blend Coffee. To order, visit earthblendcoffee.co now.
SocratesGarrett.ent.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. SocratesGarrett.ent.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrett.ent.com.
Welcome back to Doc and Sock. We're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the Deep South. Mississippi is going to lead the way. I know that's hard for you to imagine, but Mississippi is going to lead the way. Mississippi should be a model state for African Americans. Jackson, Mississippi in particular, should be a place where we demonstrate that African Americans can lead, we can govern, and we can build communities, and we can build an economy. This is the place that has got to happen. Now, currently, we're the poorest state in the nation, and African Americans are poorer than anywhere else in this country, right here in Mississippi. And there's really no reason for that. We have great weather, we have great climate, we have the landscape, the geography, where we're proximity-wise, we're close to Memphis, 200 miles. Matter of fact, we're 200 miles from everywhere. We're 200 miles from Shreveport, Memphis, Mobile. We're 200 miles from Birmingham. We're 200 miles from everywhere. So this should be a hub that will allow us to be a great transportation center. And it's not happening because of ineffective leadership. Now, Dr. Henderson was saying that African Americans are in greater numbers in the Republican Party than I would have imagined. He thinks there are 10 to 12, maybe as high as 20% of African Americans that are voting Republican. But they are not allowed to identify themselves as Republicans because the backlash in the African American community would be so great. You see, we don't have the ability to whip others, but we can really bring down each other. We tear each other down with some of the most harsh rhetorics that you ever heard in your life. And that's why competent people don't run for office, because they don't want to put themselves and their families through all of the foolishness that's going to come their way. Now, recently, a young lady that was president at Harvard University had to resign. Now, Doc, African Americans didn't bring this lady down. We have seen that they have turned on African American leaders, have turned on the community in a large way all across the country. But what happened to the president up at Harvard?
Well, she had to just admit that she was getting deeper and deeper in trouble with the lack of proper remarks, where she didn't outright do two things. She didn't take a harsh enough stand against the Palestinian and Hamas, and she didn't outrightly say that the Israelis are doing what's best for their country and protecting themselves. And she's not denouncing, the controversy they have at her school. And she just said, I believe today, that she's going to have to resign. Now, she did resign, but now that was not her decision to do that. Someone had to have a meeting with her and say, my good friend, we gave you an opportunity. The pressure is so high. We have now 3 or 4 more donors that are saying they're now going to give us 10, 30, or 40 million dollars, and they will tomorrow if you announce today that you're resigning. We're not telling you to resign, but you have to make that decision before noon.
Now, Doc, who could be that powerful in this country that could give her 24, 48 hours by noon to resign from a position that she had to work for all of her life? She had to have the education to become a black female president at the prestigious Harvard University is quite an accomplishment.
It is, but now she's not the only one that had to resign. There are others, and there will be additional presidents leaving within the next 30 days. I would predict that 2 or 3 more is going to be leaving, unless they get smart enough and just say no comment when they ask certain questions. Say, I'm not the international representative of America. I'm not a senator. I'm not in the House. You go to my representative. My job is to be president of this university or this college, and I'm going to look out for the interests of all my students, and I have no additional comments.
Now, Doc, when are you free? When you paid all of your dues You are the president of the university. The students are looking for you for leaderships and ideas and concepts and rights and wrongs. When did you lose the ability to be an open-minded person that could speak their mind?
Well, you never have that opportunity in America. You have to speak of the people that make the policies. You can't go and be an independent communicator if you're a college president or if you're president of a Fortune 500 company. You can say certain things and tick off certain people that financially support your institution, your business or whatever, or the association you're connected with. You'll be gone overnight because your board of directors or your board of control or your regents, if you're talking about a college, got to have that money. And there are certain alumni that's giving you 10, 30, 40, 50 million dollars a year and got friends they can call to give you additional 2 or 300 million. All the rich folks got rich friends. Many of them attended the same college and universities. And they give the money to these presidents through their boards, and the boards select anyone that they want, and especially those they can control. There's not one major president that will say that I'm not going to resign and not leave if they approach in private by their board of directors.
Wow. So the issues like Yemen is now, stopping ships in the Red Sea, and Iran just sent a warship over in the area. A college president can't speak on those issues?
Yeah, he or she can, but if they are smart and want to keep their jobs, they can't. They have to take the fifth on it, or just say that is not my job. That's be above my pay grade. My job is to look out for the general welfare of my students at this great university, and I'm not going to try to change the minds of politicians.
I remember back during the civil rights struggles, my mother was a teacher and my daddy was an advocate for civil rights, and she was afraid to death every time he left the house because she thought she was going to lose her job. She wasn't free to speak what was on her mind. So that's just a different form of slavery, in my opinion, when you don't have the ability to speak up, to call it like it is, to tell the truth about it as you see it. Whenever you lost that, you become less than an effective leader in the African American community.
Of course.
We look to you to be a leader and a role model that our children will emulate, and that we will grow leaders up to stand tall and strong in difficult times.
Those days are virtually gone as far as black people are concerned. Now, I know of an example that took place some years ago, I would say 30 or 40 years ago, where there was an exception. We have a current congressman that used to be a teacher in the public schools, and they wanted him to teach certain things, and he taught the opposite, and he was kicked out of his teaching position. Now, he was not given a job to what I call address his economic means, so he decided to work where he could. He decided to get in politics, and now he's in Congress. White folks didn't have no idea that he was going to be moving so fast and so high. They would have let him continue to teach school, but kept him down in a teaching position. A man with his drive would have been a principal, a possible superintendent, and a college professor in 10 or 15 years. I'm not going to name this person, but he is the congressional leader of the 2nd District in Mississippi.
Also chairman of Homeland Security, I believe.
Exactly.
And chairman of the Committee on the January 6th Insurrection.
Right. Yeah.
I believe that person.
Yeah, with the change now with the Republicans taking over, he's sort of like the minority person now on those committees, but he still has high standing.
Wow. Now, let's talk about what we can talk about. You mentioned World War III Part 1 and 2. Does the fact that Iran has shown its hand by sending a warship in the area And the fact that Yemen has said that you cannot come through the Red Sea here because of your position in this war, is this the beginning of the escalation that I don't want to say that you called the beginning of World War III, but it certainly is widening and broadening the conflict?
Let me tell you something, and you've been reading this too. Now, we did some research yesterday. We found that 13 different nations, directly and indirectly, fighting in that war, including the United States. You know, the United States has had a big warship to leave that region, and Iran sent theirs over there. Now, a lot of the economy is being rearranged because those ships that are afraid to go to that area all got to go all around the Horn of Africa to get to where they want to get. And with the Chinese, the Russians, and North Korea getting involved directly and indirectly, someone is going to start shooting those missiles at more than a target that's flying in the sky from a previous land base or from another ship from another country. They are going to be killing civilians in 4 or 5 different surrounding nations: Egypt, Lebanon, Yemen, and some of the Jordan and some of the other Middle Eastern nations. And they're going to turn their armies loose, even though they're going to lose, but it's going to be so much damage and hurt so many people until this is going to be a continuous war. In less than a generation, they're going to start again. And that's why I'm telling you, with the losers losing to the point where they can't even hardly survive after they are not bombed because they are relocated. They're trying to starve them to death. They have no heat, no food, no water, no health care, just enough to survive, and you better not get hit and your apartment fall on you. You have no medical care, so you're going to die within 24 hours.
Wow.
If some of those stones fall on you.
Wow, and most of that region would be of the Islamic faith.
Exactly.
And most of the Western world with a power structure of the Christian faith. Is it plausible to think that this could become a religious war?
Well, they wouldn't call it that. They're going to use economic war and strategic locations. And they want to be talking about sovereignty and people's rights and democracy and nationalism. But the religious connotation will be there. We know that's always there. But they're not going to say that, I wouldn't think. They're going to put emphasis on being conservative, being neutral until they are attacked. Going to talk about we have to be nationalists, look out for our people first. And they will be fighting others that's saying the same thing.
Now, Doc, I gotta believe that we're gonna have to take a look at the large number of religious folk in this country, because, quite frankly, history says that there have been some brutal wars in this country, and we cannot afford a war when America is diverse as it is, with so many different nationalities, and with the immigrants coming, making that even more. The national security of this country has got to be something that you're concerned about.
Well, Americans will be concerned. Well, they have always had to deal with that kind of stuff in most of the wars. If you have a group that you identified as a threat, all you have to do is put them in a relocation camp, or move them to another part of the world, or allow them to move from a state where they live to another, just like they did in America with the Japanese and others, and like they did blacks. So you will find that they already have a plan to deal with these people. In America, now they have these relocation camps. My last research showed, I believe they have about 109 or 10 relocation camps already set up in America, and the largest one is in Alaska, where they can take 2 million people. Now, a lot of people will hear this, they wouldn't believe it, but I tell all the viewers and listeners, do the research. Just type in relocation camps in America, and you'll see where they're located, most of them on military bases and surrounding areas, and old big buildings that are already set, already equipment, old warehouses, right in the middle of some of the worst cities in the country. And those places are going to be refitted into camps for thousands of people, like they did a lot of the Hispanics that were put in the warehouses at old Walmart buildings and places like that. All you got to do is put some cages in there, and you got your new prison, and that could be done in 24 hours.
Are you implying that blacks are going to be shipped out to Alaska?
Well, not anytime soon. If they have World War III Part 2, they're going to be shipped out, because not all of them, but a lot of them, because they're not going to need as many soldiers in the war as they did during my time. When I was in Vietnam, you didn't even have to have a high school diploma if you had 10 toes and 10 fingers and could say yes, sir. Now you have to have more sophisticated people in the war as specialists. And all of us know that black folks don't encourage their kids to finish high school in many instances. They don't encourage them not to finish, they just don't encourage them to. I'm talking about thousands of them. And at the same time, you don't have a lot of black people telling their sons and daughters to join the National Guard. And then you'll find that the requirements are so tight, if you don't have a high school diploma, it's difficult now to test into those areas to become a member of the National Guard. And they will then have a World War III Part 1. That will change the whole dynamic, because they will lower the standards to get you in, to put you in infantry, transportation, and I call it cooking school, and handling other things.
Now, Doc, you said earlier in some other shows that blacks better learn how to speak Spanish.
They better do it.
Now you seem to be saying we better get acclimated to cold weather.
You better do it.
Now, Doc, we're going to have to make some changes here. Why is it that black leadership is so ineffective in the urban cities that we have the majority?
Because they don't want to think and be good leaders. They don't want to practice what I call self-survival. They don't want to do what I'm suggesting and suggested for years, to tell their constituents, I'm in your corner. I'm going to help you pool your resources. I'm going to help you train your people. I'm not going to be closing your schools. If I close the school, I'm going to refit that school and make training centers out of it, where you can learn trades and have technology skills in 3, 6, or 9 months. I'm going to teach you how to do things like AIT specializations. I'm going to teach you how to build drones. I'm going to teach you how to fly drones. I'm going to teach you how to install nuclear plants and panels. I'm going to teach you coding. And you don't need a high school diploma to do that. You just need to have average intelligence and at least a 5th grade education.
Wow. So we have also this new technology called artificial intelligence.
Of course.
It's new to the African American community, but I imagine it's been around for quite some time.
It's been around a long time.
And so it is going to replace a lot of blacks as well.
Exactly. And that's going to be the problem with those that don't have those skills and don't have a position to take a test to get in any new training programs that's there, because most blacks in America have been miseducated to the point, and they always fix the test where they're going to be tested out of it. And if they do pass the test, they're going to be so low, by the time they get in a chance to get in a training program, it'll be too late, because they're going to need more people to be tested, and those on the waiting list, and I've been talking about this for years, not going to ever be able to get into the training program.
Well, Doc, what are you going to do with all of these people that don't have skills, that are not participating and being a productive part of the citizenry? What do you do with those people?
Well, I'm going to make it simple. You give them free housing, free clothing, free transportation, and free food in those relocation camps. That's what you do.
Doc, we're not going to any relocation camps here. I hate to even think of that. I'm reminded so much of the horror stories that we had, the Chinese in relocation camps after World War II, Japanese, I mean. And so I just can't even phantom that. I think of the American Indian now up in Oklahoma and the Trail of Tears marching out to these relocation camps. And I just can't think that that's something that we should allow to happen.
Well, let me tell you something, sir. What you don't want to believe and admit, it could take, in about 30 days, they could have one of the largest relocation camps in Hinds County that would take at least 100,000 folks. South Jackson and certain parts of West Jackson. The legislatures can get together and define a certain area that encompass, I would say, South Jackson, East Jackson, including some of the rural areas, and say this is where we're going to put our non-productive citizens. And we're going to look out for them as we do Native American Indians. They call their land a good land. They call it a reservation, where they have what we call self-control, which is a lie, because they are just like the Palestinians and the Hamas in Israel. Those Indians on those reservations were starved to death if the American government, through their Bureau of Indian Affairs, didn't give them food, clothing, shelter, and a few jobs. Don't you know almost 50% of the males that live on reservations don't even have jobs? So they are sitting there depressed, drinking, using drugs, beating their wives, ignoring their children, because they can't fit into American society. They have been dealt with in such a way where they don't feel comfortable off that reservation because they know they're going to be discriminated against.
Doc, we are out of time. We're going to continue these conversations. This dialogue is critically important that we have this discussion. You know, relocation camp theories sound a bit far-fetched at the moment, but yet the examples that Doc is giving in terms of the reservations and the things that were done to others is, makes you think. It makes you wonder. We know that there are a large percentage of African Americans are unemployed and uneducated, and we're seeing an increase in crime and a breakdown of the family and things of that nature. And so something is going on that we need to be aware of. But we'll continue this when we come back to you. We'll be back on Thursday at 8 o'clock. We're going to be coming on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays at 8 o'clock. Many of our East Coast fans said that 9 o'clock is a little too late for them. So we get that. We want to be able for everybody to get a chance to watch this show. So we'll be back on Thursday at 8 o'clock and Friday at 8 o'clock. And then going forward is Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays for Doc and Sock. Now, Doc, tell our folk how they can get in touch with you and what you got on your schedule.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, the viewers and listeners, you can see the Elder Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, 2 days a week currently. We're going to have the show on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We will come on Tuesdays from 7 until 8 and Thursdays from 7 until 8. Now, there might be a little shift in the time eventually for about an hour. We're working on these schedules and they will be set within 30 days for sure, and we'll know without a doubt, and the time will be consistent. So we want you all to get ready to hear the real news, and we are going to continue to tell you what's going to happen to you if you don't learn to pool your resources, train your own leaders, and put them in what I call areas of responsibility in education, religion, politics, economic development, and of course, in leadership and training. You got to do it, folks. If not, you're going to be on that reservation, whether you like it or not. Not too many of you are going to live in those gated communities now. I'm going to tell you right now. Because you're not going to be allowed in, and those few that can afford it, they will put 2 or 3 of you in there, but that's going to be about it. The rest of you are going to be in an urban or rural ghetto or a relocation camp. You don't want to hear the truth, but I'm going to give it to you. That's the truth.
Thank you, Doc. This has been Doc and Sock. We'll see you guys again on Thursday at 8. Stay safe and have a good evening.